Welcome to Mystery in Minutes. Today we're embarking on a mysterious island adventure with the 2017 film Cold Skin. Spoilers ahead, and viewer discretion is advised. The movie begins with an enchanting scene under the Atlantic Ocean, where dolphins swim alongside the ship. Our protagonist, a handsome Englishman in his 30s, leans against the railing in September 1914, en route to a remote South Atlantic island for a year-long stint as a weather observer. He lights a cigarette but struggles to ignite a spark until Captain Axel offers his lighter. Through a telescope, the captain shows him their destination, and a question about what he's running from lingers. As they prepare to anchor, they disembark from the ship onto a rowing boat that ferries them to the island. Along the way, the Englishman notices the absence of birds. Upon arrival, the Englishman hangs his hat on a stick on the beach, and upon entering their cabin, he finds it dusty and in disarray. Another man asks the captain about the remaining luggage, but the Englishman insists on retrieving them against the captain's wishes. Looking out the window, he sees the waves crashing against the shore. The men explore the island, discovering a rocky mountain with the inscription, "Gruner owns this mountain," and the captain orders the men back to the boat. As they make their way back, the captain and the Englishman continue towards a lighthouse. It's an unwelcoming sight, crudely fortified by a man named Gruner. The captain knocks on the door, but as he waits for Gruner to open, the Englishman wanders to observe the lighthouse more closely. Eventually, they barge their way in, and the captain calls out to Gruner. They head upstairs into his bedroom, where they find a disheveled, groggy, naked man with a long white beard and hair asleep in bed. The captain rudely wakes him up, demanding to know the whereabouts of the previous weather observer, who the Englishman had come to replace. Gruner cryptically replies that the previous observer most likely died from typhus and cannot return with the ship. The impatient captain presses for more information, and Gruner matter-of-factly reveals that he hadn't seen the man in days and assumes he may have gone swimming in the sea, never to return. As they prepare to leave, the Englishman shows Gruner a book, asking him if he likes Fraser, but Gruner declines, only asking for tobacco. The disgruntled captain departs from the lighthouse, warning the curious Englishman to be careful. He hands him a pistol and wishes him well before leaving. The Englishman saunters off, deep in thought, gazing out at the high seas atop a rock. The Englishman arranges his makeshift living space with a telescope and filled sacks, then takes out a newspaper clipping from his trunk. The article reveals that the heir and the Archduke and his wife were murdered, suggesting that the Englishman may be the missing heir. In the table's drawer, he discovers the previous weather observer, Aldor Vigeland's diary, and begins to read it next to the fireplace. The diary contains drawings of shells, whale skeletons, and a photo of the observer's wife. He also discovers illustrations of sea creatures attacking and the phrase "Darwin was wrong," but eventually falls asleep. The following day, he explores the island and takes note of the strange rock circles on the beach. Using his binoculars, he observes Gruner, who seems peculiar. Upon returning to his cabin, the Englishman hears loud noises outside and assumes it to be Gruner. However, when he calls out to him, there is no response. Fearful, he cautions towards the door and sees the foot of a creature trying to get in under the door. He stomps on it and then quickly heads to the safety of his basement, where he hides and peeks through the gap in the door above. Startled by an eye peeping in, he pokes at it, causing the creature to leave in agony as he remains hidden in the basement. The following day, he ventures out and discovers a trail of blood, following it to footsteps in the sand. Determined to find out what is happening, he goes to the lighthouse and demands that Gruner let him in, but to no avail. Frustrated, he reinforces his cabin, dousing his books in gasoline and sealing the windows and doors. While searching through his belongings, he discovers a rifle and bullets, which he arms himself with for the night. As darkness falls, he sees the creature descending from the waters, crawling their way towards his cabin, scaring him. The creatures attempt to break into the cabin to get him, but momentarily stop, giving him enough time to load his gun. Then they get on the roof, so he begins to shoot and uses the pyre of books to start a fire. However, the door of his cabin also catches fire, forcing him to break through it while wrapped in a blanket and with the copy of Inferno burning away. He hides behind a big rock, hoping to go unnoticed, but the sudden pouring rain drenches him, leaving him exposed to the creatures. Upon returning to his damaged cabin, the Englishman tends to his wounds and spots Gruner leaving the lighthouse. He follows him down to the rocks and readies his gun to shoot, but is suddenly attacked by a female sea creature. After overpowering her, he is stopped by Gruner, who shows him that the creature is actually tame. Skeptical, the Englishman offers Gruner supplies in exchange for answers, and Gruner leads him to the cabin. Gruner gives the Englishman the name Friend, and they form a mutual understanding where Friend provides supplies and Gruner allows him to stay in the lighthouse. As they talk in the cabin, Gruner asks about the wound on Friend's hand and how many creatures he has killed. In the cabin, Friend accuses Gruner of being responsible for the previous meteorologist's death by abandonment. Gruner, however, ignores him and urges him to leave as soon as they are packed. They carry a large box and set out towards the lighthouse. While Friend is asleep, the sea creature licks his wounded hand. He wakes up startled, but soon realizes that his wound has healed when Gruner returns. Gruner asks about the wound and tells him that he had been unconscious for 2 days. Gruner explains to Friend that the creature is like a loyal dog and will not leave her master, no matter how cruel he is. Friend observes the creature and suggests that she and her kind may have evolved independently, surviving in isolation and caught in an evolutionary stalemate. He is intrigued by her apparent uniqueness, but Gruner dismisses it, stating that the only difference is that she does not bite. Gruner leads Friend to the top of the lighthouse and reveals that the creatures are repelled by light. Friend questions why Gruner didn't escape the island in the boat that brought him there, but Gruner counters by asking why Friend came if he sought civilization. As Friend expresses his desire to leave, Gruner shatters his hopes, explaining that no commercial ships pass by their route except for the one bringing his replacement. Reflecting on his reasons for coming to the island, Friend had sought solace in the void, but now counts the days until his departure. The creature inspects his belongings, and he lets her look, but stops her from eating a candle. Gruner interrupts, asking him to follow him with a rifle. Preparing for the night, Gruner arms himself and asks Friend to hold fire until they see the other creatures on the shore. Gruner uses the female creature as bait and begins to shoot at them, but Friend is hesitant to kill them at first and retreats into the island, passing out at the thought of it. The next day, Gruner is frustrated with Friend's uselessness and assigns him to menial tasks like fetching water. When Friend returns, he catches Gruner having sex with the female creature. Despite feeling uncomfortable, Friend continues to eat. The creature offers to share her food with Friend, but Gruner is unhappy about it and warns Friend that this is his last chance to prove himself. That night, Gruner locks Friend outside on the balcony with a gun, leaving him to fend for himself against the creatures while he waits outside. The next morning, Gruner finds Friend covered in creature blood but alive. The two men settle into a routine of coexistence, constantly keeping watch as the creatures attack several nights in a row. Friend continues to perform menial tasks to earn his place at the lighthouse, while keeping track of the days passing by, longing to leave the island. One day, Friend creates a concoction of herbs and shares his wisdom on the subject with Gruner. Friend also theorizes that the other creatures may be coming to the lighthouse because of the female creature's wailing and their desire to reclaim her. However, Gruner remains unaffected by Friend's theories and only desires to exterminate the creatures. Gruner trades Friend's continued existence in the lighthouse for more timber, and while Friend shaves at his cabin, he discovers the same skeletal remains of the whale he had seen in the book. Over time, Friend develops a fondness for the female creature, whom he names Inaris, and begins sharing his food with her despite Gruner's disapproval. During a game of chess, Friend talks about his fascination with the sea creatures, which annoys Gruner. Suddenly, they are attacked and barely escaped with their lives. Gruner is bitten on the foot, and they retreat to the lighthouse light room for the night with the creatures trying to break in. At dawn, the creatures leave for the sea, and Inaris tends to Gruner's wound. As they try to rebuild their protective structures lost in the attack, Friend attempts to signal a passing ship for rescue, but Gruner stops him. Inaris tries to protect Friend, which angers Gruner even more. Despite this, Gruner lets Friend and Inaris live. Gruner continues to physically and sexually abuse Inaris, and Friend spends his days walking along the beach collecting whale bones and carving them into a boat. He shows Daenerys his creation and she leads him to an abandoned boat on the beach, which makes him happy. Friend excitedly shares the discovery of the boat on the beach with Gruner, who dismisses the idea of using it as an escape, citing its small size and the fact that it belonged to a Portuguese man who had been killed by the creatures. However, Gruner reveals that the shipwreck carried dynamite, but the only available explosives were waterlogged. While Gruner has no interest in exploring the shipwreck for more dynamite, Friend is eager to do so, hoping to use it to exterminate the creatures. Gruner's jealousy is sparked after seeing Friend swimming with Daenerys, leading him to change his mind and join in the search. Donning an old diving suit, Friend bravely ventures down to the shipwreck to retrieve the dynamite, but encounters a childlike creature that unintentionally knocks him down on the ocean floor. Abandoning the suit in fear, he reaches the shore and wraps himself in a thick blanket from the boat. Once they return safely, Friend and Gruner discover that the recovered dynamite is dry enough for use. Friend and Gruner surround the lighthouse with dynamite as a trap for the sea creatures, and the falling snow signals the arrival of winter. 3 weeks pass, and Gruner is seen frozen in the cold as he sits watching guard. Friend sends him to warm up while he takes over the post. Inside, Gruner becomes restless and takes his anger out on the female creature, blaming her for warning her friends to stay away from the forthcoming danger. Friend stops him from hurting her further, and together they form a plan. That night they prepare for the showdown and stand in arms lying in wait. Gruner forces Daenerys onto the balcony and makes her tearfully sing to attract the creatures. A creature attacks Friend at the door and he fights him off with a knife, eventually killing him. Soon all the creatures attack, but Gruner fails to set off the explosives, forcing Friend to run up to the top of the lighthouse while shooting and escaping frantically to reconnect the detonator. As Gruner shoots at the creatures from the top of the lighthouse, they struggle to keep them at bay. Finally, when Friend reconnects the detonator, the resulting blast kills many of the creatures. However, Gruner sets off a secondary set of explosives closer to the lighthouse, knocking both Friend and himself unconscious. Friend wakes up in the snow, crawling towards Gruner to wake him up. The next morning, Gruner finishes off the wounded and dying creatures lying on the beach with a harpoon. After seeing one of the dead creatures wearing a necklace and not being able to finish him off, Friend believes that the creatures are more civilized than Gruner makes them out to be. That night, they stand atop the lighthouse, and Gruner assumes that the wailing sounds are coming from Daenerys as a rite of passage. He reveals that he found her years ago as a baby trapped in a net and rescued her. Believing that she owes him her life, he thinks that she'll come groveling back to him, same as she always did. The next morning, Friend resumes walking along the beach and sees a few creatures swimming in the waves, but he leaves a carved present for them. He finds Gruner back at the lighthouse preparing for another attack and leaves him be. That night, atop the lighthouse, he looks through his binoculars at the present he left and returns below in the morning to find Gruner drunk and passed out in bed. He discovers a card, leading him to a box with a photo of Gruner as a young man with a wife. As Friend contemplates the days that have gone by, he uses leftover alcohol to wipe off his tracking of the days. He proceeds towards the whale skeleton on the beach and discovers a child creature investigating his present. Daenerys returns, appearing more confident and bold, with more creatures behind her. The beautiful reunion is interrupted by Gruner firing a gun. Friend tries to mediate, informing Gruner that the creatures are seeking a truce and that the two of them were wrong. Gruner commands Daenerys to return to him, but she refuses, causing him to scream that no one leaves Gruner. He runs back to the lighthouse and Friend starts to follow Daenerys, but Gruner shoots a flare at a child, striking him in the chest and killing him. Friend runs after Gruner as he continues to fire flares, and after a struggle, he throws Gruner to the ground and stabs his leg. Gruner gains the upper hand and attempts to kill Friend with an axe, but Friend urges Gruner to stop, telling him that he is not a murderer. In a shocking revelation, Friend confesses that he is actually Aldor Vigeland, the previous meteorologist. Gruner remembers who he is and drops the axe. He staggers outside with a final look towards the night sky and is taken and killed by the sea creatures. Friend locks the door and falls back, reaching for the axe and keeping it with him as the night passes. Sometime later, a ship arrives to replace Friend with another meteorologist. The captain mistakes him for the lighthouse keeper Gruner, and Friend does not correct him. He maintains the role, contemplating that this is the peace he originally sought. Daenerys is seen returning to the waters from the rocky island, leaving Friend to his new life as the lighthouse keeper. Excited for more adrenaline-pumping videos like this? Share your comments below and hit the like and subscribe buttons for more.